Cindy said she was coming. Right?
Yeah, it's gonna be virtual. Mhm.
This here and judging 2 5 days. This is where we can collaborate, think, speak. If you have stuff to add, this is just part of today's presentation.
Is that okay, Jeremy? I just left
That
that.
was the first time I've opened it. Yeah, Shannon's hand that as well. Like,
No.
we're not making any decisions today.
It probably has it all.
It's not a punt. It's a T.
Tea.
Is Paul joining us today, Dave?
Yes,
It's online.
just briefly, I can give him a little bit of a break. He's just kind of calling.
I'm here, Jeremy.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Oh, Cindy's online. So we have a quorum. We have a quorum. We're ready to go, Bill.
Okay. I'd like to call the January 10th meeting of the Capital Projects Advisory Board to order. The first agenda item is the roll call
Okay. Bill Foster,
here.
William Messner,
Present.
Kristen Rutherford.
Here.
Robert Chandler is excused. Bruce Johnson
Here.
and Cynthia Wagner.
Here.
Like we have a quorum.
On the first agenda.
Yes.
And this pushes this issue. But my term expires September 30th. And I don't know that I'm going to seek reappointment.
Okay.
So that might be germane to dealing with.
The board elections.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just let me bring up my thing here. So I just want to go through some administrative things that we need to touch base on. One is, if I was sharing, everyone can see it. So our first order of business is we have a new member. So Justin Hurley Braswell, am I saying like all right, has decided to join the board. And if you can just give you kind of a brief sort of intro to yourself, just to acquaint yourself with the board. And he's just doing kind of a casual, soft participation today until he gets his bearings.
Is that why you said so far?
Well, it's
Yeah.
Apologize. Sure. So, my name is Justin Hurley Braswell. I'm the Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer for Con Investments, which is a fourth generation family business based here in properties all over Oregon and Washington. Primarily we focus on healthcare and government office. And we're a long-term holding company, so we understand development, construction, what those costs are, what maintenance costs are, sell anything in our portfolio. So we have a team across the state that handles all of the maintenance issues in our facilities. Before being at Rubicon, I was the director of real estate for Asante Health System for 13 years. And so with that, I have a different perspective on using real estate as a strategy when you're in a nonprofit rather than doing that as an investment. And some of my accolades have been I was the first and only person to receive the Better Bricks Award for Oregon and Southwest Washington in Southern Oregon when I was located there. I am a founding member of the Urban Lane Institute of Healthcare and Life Sciences Committee. And member of the Alliance. And any questions that people have, feel free to ask. But again, my focus has always been on healthcare and urban office, so it just felt like a good fit.
I think it's probably, we have kind of a light agenda today, so I think it's okay that you guys can just stay who you are, so he knows, kind of reciprocate.
My name is Bruce Johnson. I work for the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. I've been on the board for 2 years. All right, Bill Messner, work for Portland General Electric. There I've had many different roles, but my current role now is Senior Infrastructure Program Director. And so what that means is that the company has been very aggressive going after federal grants. So we brought in a little over $400 million to our customers to help with our infrastructure projects. My background is an attorney engineer, my MBA as well.
Foster and currently the chair. I have a very long background in facilities. I was with the state. It has a new name now, but we called it facilities back then. For many years, I was the state architect and for a while the administrator before I retired. And I've done some consultings, but I'm pretty much retired.
Congratulations, and you decided to continue to serve until September.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Kristen,
Hi there, I'm Kristen Rutherford. I am the Director of Community Planning and Development with the City of Salem, which is the department that is all things housing and development, from the Salem Housing Authority to urban renewal and economic development, federal programs, planning, building and safety, that whole span.
Cindy? Short.
Sure. Hi, my name is Cindy Wagner. I am the Director of Facilities Development at Salem Health. And so with that, I'm in charge of strategic facilities planning as well as real estate and property management and then just general construction and management of the site. So, and previously I've held been in charge of facilities operations. And actually my past I got into construction from kind of an odd pathway because I started my career as a nurse, but that certainly helps me in what I do for my how I manage my job.
Well, welcome. Thank you. And yeah, it is our intent to onboard Justin appropriately. And one of those things is I'm preparing a handbook, which I've been remiss to do for several biennia, but since we have new administrative rules and all these other things, I want to provide, in the bill, if you're departing, we're going to have some turnover. So having a handbook, I think, would be good. And that way you can have something to reference during the meetings, when we have sticky issues about what we're deciding and how we're deciding it in courses of action. So we were going to do that before today, but we got
It didn't happen.
didn't happen. We got caught in the buzzsaw, so we're okay. Next meeting. So the board chair, vice chair nominations, we are due for re-upping the terms of the chair and vice chair. I don't know how we want to do this. Do we want to nominate people, or do we want to, well, we need to nominate people, but do we want to, is there enough of a,
So, but the terms goes through, they go through September.
it's supposed to
And
September?
so do we have to do that today, or does that have to go in September? That's my question.
Well, I think you don't have to do it today, but it's something that we could do today. If, what are you sort of thinking?
Well, it seems like that's 9 months away.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is there's this conclusion that Bill would continue to serve as chair. And does that, I think we have to kind of validate that. And then if that makes sense, and then, or if there's somebody else that wants to be chair and vice chair.
Right, so I guess what I'm thinking, I think a lot could change in 9 months. So it seems to me, but I would suggest that you have an election closer to the September, or the meeting before September.
Okay,
It would be my suggestion.
okay. Do we want to have a motion on that?
And yeah, that's, I mean, there's a lot of rotation here, right? So
Yeah.
people get pulled in, it's just life happens, and so it's like we're always having a new board member come on board. So
Yeah.
that's just my adjustment.
Okay. Do we want to have a motion on that, Bill?
All right, you want to move your suggestion?
Yeah, do we have to, does it even worthy of a motion? I mean, do the bylaws say we have to have an election today?
No.
No.
Okay, so I don't even know if it's worth a motion, I guess. So, but I can formally say, I think I would, I suggest, or I move that we have our, do you know when our meetings are scheduled for all this year? I don't recall.
It's quarterly, so it's every 3 months. So the next one's in April, June, and then, or July, and then September, what? October.
Okay, so I would say I move that we move our elections to July, to the July meeting for the next term of the chair and vice chair.
Okay. That sounds workable, I think. And Bill, I think if that is your intention to roll off, it'd be a big loss, but we can then plan accordingly to find a replacement, and then that person can vote on.
Yeah, that's why it felt like maybe this is a good time to disclose that.
Yeah, that's
I might
fair.
have waited a little while, that it gives some time for a reasonable transition, and you know, if you're working on a manual, perhaps I can give a little input into that.
Sure.
Well, then I think it gives all the members of the board here an opportunity to think about what they want to do instead of just pulling the wire in the day without a lot of people having time to think about it.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And yeah, that's new information, Bill. So thank you for disclosing that. I appreciate that. And that gives us some time to kind of prepare. And so that's fair.
So do you need a
I don't think that's something that we need to vote on because it isn't necessarily codified by date
Right.
when we do that.
Okay.
So let's just move on to the next, which is we're going to have a new permanent meeting location change. So we're not going to be here anymore. So the DAS has remodeled the executive building and it is open for business. There's like a slow move in right now, so we couldn't do it for this meeting. But next meeting in April, it will be fully equipped to permanently move over there. And the same will be true for the Capital Planning Commission. So that's exciting, I think. And I haven't personally seen it, but I heard that it's beautiful. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, we moved in on the first, or January 6th, first week of January. Well, is that this week?
That was this week.
Oh, I have like lost my mind since the end of budget season, but yeah, we moved in and it's absolutely amazing. It's wonderful.
Good.
So at that building, there's parking up on the upper deck. There's metered parking on the deck, and then there's some local street parking. You'd go in the main entry as you always have and check in with the receptionist and they'll give you access. And if you have other work to do that day we have lots of hoteling space on the first floor. So you could plan on just spending the day there if you'd like to.
Thank you very much. I, for one, will miss this.
Oh, well,
With no windows.
yeah. Not the best.
It's a beaut.
Some of state workers work.
Okay.
So one of the things that we were considering for that next meeting is to actually have the meeting, but also conduct a tour of that building to see all the fun little features. And it just sort of brings up that this is kind of our interim year where we could do some tours. And if there's some other sort of suggestions for tours that you would like to have, as meetings or in lieu of meetings, I can attempt to arrange that to the extent feasible. I think that there was some interest in state hospital. I'm not sure how feasible that is given the security thing, but I can talk to Chris about that. And we did have a tour of the School for the Deaf, which happened last year.
Which is very good, by the way.
Yeah, and that's an interesting place. So I tried to arrange the tours to sort of relate to sort of agencies who are proposing something, so you can kind of tell their story. So, but I think with the executive building, we're just trying to take a victory lap on that one. So that's our
Just
next.
a victory lap, but also affords an opportunity with some of the conversations we're gonna have over the course of the next couple of years about the CPAB process and some of the things that we want agencies to report on, that we can work on evaluating what we contemplate for space utilization, energy use index, seismic vulnerability, just office space use moving into the future and changing from the old world to the new world. And it would give us an opportunity to see some real world how we've incorporated that into our projects and what those different costs and are associated with projects. I think it would be really good for us all to be able to see what we are trying to build in the future in state government.
So moving on, we have a couple of updates. One is what is sort of traditional is to have a presentation on the projects that made it to the governor's recommended budget and which projects that you reviewed and kind of have that sort of closure. So Tamara Brickman from the Chief Financial Office will present that, and I'm going to run her slides. So I got to switch here. Take it away.
Okay.
There you go. Oops, so I'm not sharing, that's why. I'm rusty.
Yeah. Okay, for those of you who know me or don't know me, just to reacquaint you with who I am, I'm Tamara Brickman, and I work in the Chief Financial Office. I'm a budget and policy analyst, and I'm assigned a certain portfolio of agencies to work on in making recommendations for the governor's budget. The governor puts together her proposed budget every even numbered year in the fall, and it's put out. We work on it for much longer than that, but it is for a sitting governor, it has to be published by December 1st. This year was December 2nd because the first fell on a Sunday. So as you may or may not be aware, the governor did release her budget on the 2nd of December. And within the budget, there were a multitude of capital requests that were from the CPAB related agencies, the agencies that need to report to CPAB. And then also other agencies that don't report to CPAB. And of course, there's usually more requests for projects than we have for which we have debt capacity to be able to do, because we fund a lot of these through our Article 11Q bonds. And so I'm just going to go over the projects that were presented to you by the agencies over the summer months, the spring and summer, to let you know what the comparison of what they requested or what they presented here in the meeting to what they requested in their agency request budget, and then what was put into the governor's budget. So if you want to go to the next slide, so we'll start with the Department of Administrative Services, and that they presented, I didn't count these projects, but a number of projects, and received funding for, and you can see that all of their requests or the presentations that they've made to, and I'm sorry, that's probably really small. Can you all see that? Okay. Yes, I did put in the projects that they presented here.
Sorry. It's really rusty right now.
The same amount that they had presented at the meeting, and then they received funding for 3 projects, which were some various deferred maintenance projects, building automation systems, and then the parking lot improvements and EV charging. Oh, excuse me, I take that back. The L&I, the Labor and Industries building, where we just moved out of, that we've been in for the last couple of years while they were working on our building to do their interior and seismic renovation. And so the one thing that I didn't put up the information about these projects, but you can find the information about these projects if you're interested in going back to your meeting minutes and the page minutes, and then there's the presentations that each agency made to the committee, and you can compare and get a little bit more information, because I don't have the information committed to memory on most of these projects, because most of these agencies are not my agencies. And so next page. The Department of Corrections had made one presentation here at CPAB for capital renewal for various projects. And they received about $600,000 and asked for about $600,000 more than reported here. So they did get their project. The Department of Education revised their requests from the presentation that they had made originally, but received everything that they had asked for the School for the Deaf campus needs. So next slide.
So far, everybody's doing pretty well.
So far, everybody's doing pretty, yeah. That ODFW, excuse me, Department of Fish and Wildlife, received the funding that they had reported to you on projects and requested in the budget for the Rogue Watershed Central Point office replacement and for the hatchery resilience infrastructure. The Department of Forestry had some changes with respect to what they actually requested from what they presented, just probably doing some refining. But you can see that all of the projects that they had requested and as they had requested them in their agency request budget were funded. So the Toledo office, the Klamath Fire Cash Warehouse, I'm going to read them to you just in case you can't see them. Sanium facility replacement, phase 1. The State Forester office building restoration, deferred maintenance and capital improvement of real property, and then the Veneta campus remodel in the Western Lake District. So next.
The Forester building made it.
Yep.
So they got more than they actually. That is amazing.
10 times the charm.
All these years.
They got what they asked for, but they pretty much they got the only thing that changed, I think, was the deferred maintenance. There was I'm not sure exactly what it was, but there was they presented 6.3 million here, and they only asked for 6 million in the budget, but they got the 6 million that they asked for. So next slide. Oregon Military Department. They made one small adjustment to one of their projects from their report. But as you can see, they received everything that they requested. So they received funding for the New England County Readiness Center, New Southern Oregon Micro Armory in Klamath Falls, and then the Salem Armory and Auditorium, what we call, put the name of the program in here and then use options down below. Service Life Extension Program in the Regional Emergency Enhancement Program for Salem Armory and Auditorium Service. Same for Woodburn Armory, Haslip and Reeve, and I may not be pronouncing these the way that military would because they're not my agency, so I apologize. The Bend Armory, Service Auditorium Service Life Extension, and then also funding for the Oregon Youth Challenge program, their athletic field. This is pretty much the only agency that didn't get anything that they asked for was the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. They'd asked for $120.4 million for a whole bunch of new construction, dorm building expansion. And I believe there was just kind of in prioritizing the projects, not only from the CPAB agencies, but non-CPAB agencies, which include HEC, which usually request a lot. As a former HEC analyst, just priorities had to be made with what was really ready to go at this point in time. So that did not get funded, the Department of Public Safety and Standards Training project. Next slide, please.
That's it.
Oh, Nope.
Nope. My computer's glitching, that's why.
Okay. Oh, you're going,
There we go.
there you go. Oregon State Police received funding for 2 out of the 3 projects they had presented here. They combined, so they asked for funding for land only for a Portland area command to purchase land. That's that 10.5 million, but that was not, they did not put that into their agency budget request. So they presented it here and did not ask for it in their agency budget request. But they did ask for a combined $7 million for the Coos Bay, North Bend area and the Ontario and Bend area command for land, and received 7 million. So I'm looking here, it looks like they requested in their presentation, they reported to you, it was 4.9 million that they were asking for, and they got 7 million for land acquisition for their Coos Bay, North Bend and Ontario and Bend command area. The Department of Veterans Affairs, which is one of my agencies, received,
I'm sorry, going back to the.
Oh, mhm.
So they presented to us basically 5, right, 4.9.
Mhm.
And, they went up by $2 million for that same.
Yeah, and I don't know that, and just to be honest with you, I can't answer, I can get some information from the analyst as to why.
It doesn't matter.
But I think it's just because they were doing presentations for CPAB much earlier than they were putting in their agency request budget, so they were probably still refining numbers.
So this land costs us, they were just underestimated.
Potentially that's the issue, but if you want an answer, I can get it back. I can get you that.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do what Daniel's, I'm happy to, I follow Daniel's orders, because hopefully then that way he'll show us for the next meeting. But, but yeah, no, I'm happy to see if I can get more information for you on that. And then, okay with me moving on with the Department of Veterans Affairs? So they asked for, I think 5, it looks like it's 5 projects. And the only difference with respect to what they presented to you and what they put in their budget and what they asked for is the Roseburg Veterans Home construction. The total cost of that project is 100 million estimated. Now, I'm sure it's probably actually going up because this is an old estimate. But the state's match is only 35% of whatever the cost of the project is. And so they only have to ask for what the state match requirement would be. Instead of, if they get federal money that comes in, they would ask for, when they get federal money, it's approved under, and it's in the queue to be approved hopefully by April, but with the change of administration, I don't know what's going to happen. And so they would get limitation to spend the money for the federal part of it, but the only request for state money was the 35 million, and that's bond request. And then it would be a bond sale to pay for that. But other than that, they received all of their smaller capital projects for their Salem headquarters and for the Lebanon and the Dallas veterans homes. Next slide. Oregon Youth Authority, they presented and then refined substantially, and I don't know the reasons behind this, but I can get you the information, what they actually asked for with respect to their projects that they presented here. And it may be that they're phasing this out, doing this in phases. I'm not entirely certain, but they did receive the funding that they requested for their CCTV access control project, the McLaren Medical Clinic and pharmacy renovation and expansion, and then funding for deferred maintenance and capital renewal. If you would like an update on the difference between the presentation and what they requested, I can get you that. Yeah, and I don't know, I apologize because I don't, this is not one of my agencies. And I'll just be honest, I didn't necessarily do that. It'll take a little time to get some information as to, because we'd have to go back with the agency and have a conversation with them about why the requests came in less than what they presented. And there is probably a very good reason for that. I just don't know what it is. So, but I can get that for you. Next slide, please.
Renee's hands up.
Renee's got a question.
Hey, Tamara. Sorry, all. This is Renee Klein from also from DAS CFO, Budget and Policy Administrator in that group. Could we go back to the OAA slide? I think we might have some numbers off on OAA because I just was looking at our bonding list. And it does look like, actually, I apologize, I didn't catch this, Tamara, yesterday, that the CCTV is at 5.6. And
You know what I might have done is I may have just looked in Orbitz, which is our budget system, where I pulled the numbers
Yeah.
from for agency request and maybe what they got for debt service. And maybe that's what I did.
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened is we put the debt service number in here. So actually they did get CCTV at the 5.6 and McLaren at 2.7 and 18 million for capital improvement. I think what we've captured on the slide is our cost of issuance and debt service cost associated with the bonds. So actually all projects were fully funded.
Okay, I probably just looked at the wrong structure. Yeah, and couldn't
No
look at the
problem.
capital construction structure. So I apologize
And then-
for the error.
The only other thing that I was just going to add in terms of DPSST is though they did not get the full campus remodel package they asked for, we did give them included in GRB is $500,000 to do a public safety academy campus replacement study so that we have better information about what is really needed there. And then something you all might see next round is there was also included in governor's budget, 4.5 million for DOC to do some work on planning for a potential geriatric facility for adults in custody and also looking at Oregon State Penitentiary replacement. So there were some funding included for studies for major facility replacement so that we have good plans in place. And so that might result in you all seeing some additional presentations around those next round. Thank you.
And if they were new projects, like Renee had just mentioned, they're not projects, new funding for things that weren't necessarily, I didn't capture new stuff that they received in the budget because I'm just presenting the comparison of what they had actually presented to this group and move forward with that. So, but thanks, Renee, that's helpful. And then that you added the information. And then just so you know, there were several agencies that did not turn in a major project and did not present major projects to you. They just presented their required facilities maintenance and respective things that they were working on for deferred maintenance and whatnot. And those agencies, these are agencies that didn't request, so didn't receive a major project within the governor's budget. So.
Well, that was wonderful, Tamara. Thank you.
Yeah, and then obviously that I've given you my contact information. If you have questions and you want to have any questions for me, I'd be happy, especially if they're not my agency, I'd be happy to work with the analysts and agencies to get the information for you. And sorry for the misunderstanding on the OIA. I was looking, we have what we call budget structures in our system. And I think I just pulled up the wrong budget structure. I didn't pull up the capital construction structure to look at what funding was in there. So, yeah.
Turned out to be a good story.
It did. Yeah, it did. Much better story than what I told. So, yeah. But yeah, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me via email or telephone if you have any questions. Happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
So next, we have a presentation from Paul Patosh, who's on our team, and he's going to give an update on one of the bigger projects we're working on that we've touched on is the implementation of our Tririga system and facility condition assessment module and sort of the programmatic effort behind that. So, Paul, your floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'll dive into that in just a second. I just, we had the little preview about the executive building, and I wanted to show you an aspect of Tririga that might be kind of exciting if you're looking at how we might utilize this technology in the future. If you can see my screen, can everybody see?
Yep, got it.
Okay, yeah. So this is a kind of a new aspect of our build out of Tririga, which allows us to kind of manage space usage within our buildings, and executive is one of the places that we're looking at. And there's a viewer part of it where you can go in and explore the building, find rooms, and et cetera, and go see amenities and all of those kinds of things. And then there's another bit of technology that allows us to do reservations, and that's where you'll be able to reserve a hotel space. And you can kind of find those garden level hoteling. You can click on those. You can find yourself, and there I am. So I can assign myself to one of these places for a particular amount of time. And of course, anything that gets reported into the system gets anything that gets recorded in the system can be reported on. So that's one of the things that we're kind of leveraging within Tririga is to get some of these some of the space usage reported and see how we're actually using our spaces. So I just figured I'd show you that as since we talked a little bit about it, and we're kind of excited by that. So moving on, yeah, I think last CPAB, I believe, I came and talked a little bit about where we were on this, and we were just beginning our project. And so Daniel asked me to come back and kind of talk about what our status is and kind of what the future plans are. So everything is good. Good news is that everything is on track. We had talked about a phased rollout, initially engaging agencies in the beginning where we had a design and discovery phase. That has happened. So we're done with that. We're in this training phase right now, which is both partially in an area of software development called user acceptance training and testing. We're doing that. And then there will be also end user to train the trainer approach to how to do facility condition assessments within the system. So looking at our schedule, and then of course we're now beginning to look at RFPs and implementation of the system as we're done designing it. Our kind of high level plan is basically here where you can see it. Like I said, good. The good news is we are on track. We have kind of three partners, if you might recall. One is IBM itself, and then an IBM implementer called Quantum Strides, and these swim lanes are those folks, and then us here as DAS. And these are basically representing the different activities and responsibilities we've had so far. Just from a high level thing here, we've done like I said, the architecture of the system. We've done our design and design documentation, all of that. We've designed implementation integrations with other agency systems, because the idea, our guiding principle with the project is make CPAB easy. Make this reporting be as fluid and as kind of instant as possible. So with that, we're, not every agency is using Tririga, but the way we've designed the system is Tririga will reach into their systems and pull out the relevant information and package it into reports for CPAB for you. So there's no double entry for agencies to report on their projects and all of that, which took some doing. The other thing here is we're integrating with our state's GIS systems. So any system is only good if you can actually get data out of it. And increasingly, we're finding that pretty much across the state, when we get requests for data, it's usually in a kind of spatial format, especially on the portfolio side. People want to know where the buildings are. They want to see it on a map, want to be able to kind of visualize it on those ways. So we're delivering GIS data all the time. So basically, Tririga had to be integrated with our state's GIS, and that's part of what we're working on right now. And we kind of just finished that aspect of it over here. So right now we're in this user acceptance training and testing, and that's with a small subset of agencies who are power users and who we're going to rely on to actually do the validation and testing of system components as we get into that very soon. And then at the end of that, we'll have a rollout. We're hoping to go to a go live, as you can barely see in the corner here, 3/14. That's still on track. At that point, we'll have also some training of other agencies in terms of how it works. And with CPAB, we're working on designing some reports that are canned within the system that allow agencies to report on the kind of thing that every agency has to report on, right? So instead of having to hunt it down in the system, the reports are automatically designed, and it's sort of a one-click preparation for that. We're also designing a system called the Advanced Reporting Server, which allows agencies to have like a whiteboard. That's how we consider it, sort of a place to work with their project data and to kind of construct the narrative that they that best represents their needs and their projects themselves, and basically then freeze that and move it into reporting areas. So kind of a whiteboard area that allows you to do some, some calculations and stuff, and then a canned report that will be presented to CPAB. So so that's it. And 314, we're going live, and then there's a time of hypercare and aftercare. That's should we decide to to change aspects of the system, we have that capacity to do so. So we're kind of imagining this go live of 314, but I'm fully expecting up through April to be really kind of tweaking major elements of the system, and that could be things on like how the uniformat codes are presented, and there may be in usage a different way of working with that construction data. So things like that could come up, and we have that ability to kind of go back and rejigger things. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're status, where we're at. Future plans, we're still, looking at like the phase 2 where we're well, I'm advocating for a mobile app for use with FCA inspections, so both requesters and inspectors themselves, just to kind of streamline that work, and so hoping to implement that. And then just as a kind of a long-term roadmap, probably another upgrade in 26. And the Tririga is, without getting too technical in it, IBM is rolling out some new technologies. One is called this Kubernetes, which is a containerization system. What that means is that the system can scale depending on demand. So you don't have to imagine what your capacity needs to be when you design the system. It scales as needed. So that means as we add users, we're not having to redesign how the servers work. Okay, so that becomes very easy for us. And we've implemented something called org-based security, which is when any agency logs into Tririga, they're only going to see their own data, which allows us to offer Tririga as a IWMS system to any agency who wishes to do so, because we've got scalability based on Kubernetes, and we've got org-based security, which means the data is already siloed in that way that allows agencies to work simply with their own data set. So that's been the good thing. One other thing coming in 26 is probably might get Jeremy a bit of a heart attack, but Tririga is going away as a system in and of itself, and it's being merged with a system called Maximo. So Tririga and Maximo are two IBM kind of asset management platforms. They're merging. So it's not that it's going away, they're just merging, and it's offering it as one product, which actually is quite good for us because Maximo is better at asset management, Tririga is better at IWMS. Now you're getting both as one product for the same cost. So that I think will actually be very exciting and useful for agencies who want to go that deep into managing, every last bit and bobbin within their buildings. They'll be able to do so using that. So, and then of course we're looking at House Bill 3409 and anticipating those needs. And so in our project here for the FCA portion of it, we're actually already creating a space for that data to be collected. As that kind of gets clearer, we won't have to go back and dust off some of our old plans. We have a kind of a stubbed in area for that. So that's kind of where we're at with this. I believe, yeah, that's it. So coming back to this, if there's any questions or anything like that, happy to answer them, but that's high level status.
Just real quick for a little bit more context and information, we're going to talk more about HB 3409 coming up in the meeting, so I don't want to go there. Then we're also going to talk about a phase 2 to the FCA approach. But I just want to make it really clear to this group, this board, that the day that we go live, it's with the old data. It's from the old FCAs, the old condition assessments from the facilities, and we're going to have like a dotted line, if you will. And then when we go out and we solicit new FCAs, new condition assessments, you'll be able to see that the aged data is here. We're going to carry it because there's value there, but we're going to have a whole new set that is going to be in there so that we can all be reporting similarly from agency to agency. And then I'll get into it a little bit later, but we're really looking for the partnership of this board to consider. We have the CFO needs, the budgetary needs for CPAB. They have what they need, but us as facilities people, there are data points or reporting metrics that are really important that we aren't necessarily reporting on to date, that I would love to see us add to the CPAB process, like the EUI, the utilization, and so on and so forth. So that's what that day 2 is.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Just the value of the old data is that it allows our system to have the building is there. There's a record for the building. The asset is there. There's a record for the asset. And if you wish to look into that history, you can. But we roll forward with the asset because typically the assets don't change much. And so we have that part of it already accomplished with this project.
I do have one question. Does this allow, because IBM's a huge company, but does this allow us to start comparing ourselves to other states? So the benchmarking that you're talking about, right? So, hey, look, where are we in the 50 states? Are we doing well? Are we doing better? Or, hey, they're doing better, let's go talk to them.
Yeah, so there are several states throughout the country that use IBM, Tririga. And then Paul, is it the entire state of California or was it?
It's the University of California system. So they use it. Arizona, Utah, Massachusetts. There's probably a handful more.
But
So yes, quite a few.
But can we start driving to, metrics beyond ourselves? And so we have those conversations happening or is that your vision?
We've been having conversations with the state of Washington, state of Utah. We've been with some licensed University of California. So yes, we are trying to we don't want to have one that matches no other state or municipality. So we're trying to develop something where we can compare and contrast where we're at.
Okay.
I think it's what the takeaway here is we've built a platform where big things can happen.
Yeah.
And we can tell bigger stories. And we're making room for information that we didn't really have before that we can track. And those will allow us to engage on ways to improve or whatnot. And for comparative purposes. So those metrics may exist in some way, but they're not really centralized and gathered from all agencies in a way where we can present them and compare them to other sources. So
I think a good way to say it is that we're trying to develop this in a industry standard.
Yeah.
We're not making up our own goals. We're trying to figure out what's the world using.
Right. Yes, it's a lot of work if you're trying to do it by yourself. And then clearly not, next question is really not about this, but I think it's broader. Cybersecurity, I don't know if there's sensitive information in there. I'm sure that's all part of your plan as well. I know for our company that drives us quite a bit, right? We run the grid, we have personal information for our customers. So I'm sure your cyber people are part of this as well.
This would be up and running about a year ago if it wasn't for cybersecurity.
Yeah. If you see up here at activity 20, you see system security, disaster recovery plans, M&O plan. That's how long that's been going already and works since then. Yeah. And it's a stage gate project. So we're in deep conversation with EIS at all times.
We'll be leaving.
well, thank you, Paul. That was very informative. Appreciate that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Happy to be here.
Really exciting to me is the usability of it and the simplification to where if we have the app and if you're using the IWMS and the FCA, when you change out an asset, it automatically updates the data in the FCA. And where in the past, the software, it's evolved quite a lot. You were in there with a highlighter marking off assets and writing in, and then you're having to do data entry. This is all going to be automated to where you can't skew numbers. You run a report and it shows you what your deferred maintenance truly is.
And so change management training, all part of the schedule as well.
Yeah, we're meeting with agencies currently.
Yeah, that's a lot of work too.
Okay, so moving on, where I want to just give you an update on HB 3409 implementation from the DAS perspective. So HB 3409, for if you're unfamiliar, was a massive bill that was passed in the 23-25 session. It covered a range of topics that dealt with sustainability and energy. But in particular, in that bill, the Oregon Department of Energy was charged with implementing and overseeing compliance of building performance standards that relate to the energy use intensity targets. So I was a part of this rulemaking committee that was in charge of developing the administrative rules for how state agencies and actually this is statewide. So this is actually commercial properties across the state. And the rules were finalized on January 1st. So they're active. It's based on the ASHRAE 100 standards. If you're familiar with ASHRAE, it's a heating and refrigeration, whatever, but they have they set standards about how assets, sort of the components of a building perform and should perform, and their sort of replacement and schedules that ensure that they're energy efficient. And so the EU, according to the statute, EUI targets are no more stringent than the average EUI for each building activity type, and they're adjusted for Oregon. So we have an Oregon-specific EUI. So we're not, compared to Arizona or Maine or something like that, where it's the climate-wise, it's a bit different. So compliance begins in 2028, and it's going to be a phased rollout. Buildings will be put into a tier structure, and which is be assigned by activity type and their square footage. So the biggest buildings will be the first that will need to comply, and there's enough time where, from our perspective, the agencies will be able to evaluate what their liability or their exposure is in terms of complying with the EUIs, target EUIs. And secondarily, in the bill, DAS was charged with developing a database of building assets for tracking their performance for the state-owned buildings, and also providing sustainability and energy efficiency projects just support for agencies. So we are in the process of rolling that out and developing that. And this sort of ties into what Paul was mentioning, that we have a space or creating a space where our phase 2 will be creating a space within Tririga to house the sustainability data that we can use. And it also plugs into the portfolio manager, if you're familiar with that, the Energy Star portfolio manager, which is how we currently report our energy use and greenhouse gas to Department of Energy, but it's integrated with that. So that is something to keep in mind, that we're working on this, but it does play into this sort of bigger conversation about how we utilize that information and use it as a sort of factor in reviewing projects in perpetuity.
Didn't go back.
Yeah.
Site. When it says compliance, compliance begins in, is that compliance in terms of like tracking it, or is that in compliance in terms of the EUI, these targets? So if someone doesn't meet the target, does that mean something?
Yeah, they would have to go to, they would have conditional compliance, and then they have to go through basically a planning process to get them into compliance. And
What happens? What happens?
There's a cost per square foot.
yeah, ultimately it's a fine.
Okay.
And that's private sector as well. So
Oh, that's okay.
we're just looking at it from our perspective, but it applies.
So theoretically, the state would have to pay it. So
Yeah, we're trying to avoid that. It's a little embarrassing.
It's kind of gray and nebulous right now, but we're developing a white page where we can spell this out that we'll be able to share. We should have that prepared for the next meeting.
okay.
The rules were just adopted and the EUI targets were bouncing all over the place because it was under scrutiny and being developed. And just kind of a quick snapshot into the DAS owned portfolio. We have about 5 buildings that are out of compliance with the new rules, but they're really close. What I'm most concerned about and what we want to be able to portray in this white page is I'm hearing that there's about a 1.6% increase in efficiency year after year. So the targets of today are not the targets from 20 years from now. So a lens that we'll have to evaluate new projects are is if this is a 30-year asset, Do you really want to build it to a 185 UI, or should we be looking at the 140? And the compliance also is staged on square footage. It starts at 300,000 square feet, I believe, and then smaller buildings at first, and they grow exponentially over the course of time.
So we have a question from Melissa.
Yeah, a question for Jeremy in particular is that the Oregon School for the Deaf has what is essentially a 10-year plan to upgrade the facilities across the state, across the campus. And the biggest building on campus is not scheduled until the third phase, which is, let's see, 6 years. So I am just really concerned about the impact it's going to be on the campus. And if we could have a conversation about it, I would just appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we should have that conversation offline because there are some rules
Yep.
in there where if you have a project, you're developing the project, there might be an exception, but I'm not positive of that to date.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. All right, so next we're going to talk about what this all means in terms of the road ahead, and for that we have Shannon and Jeremy to lead this off. So take it away. Well, you don't have a screen.
I don't have a screen, and I also kind of invited myself, so I wanted to come and listen to this conversation and also see you all again. So again, my name is Shannon Ryan. I'm the administrator for DAS's Enterprise Asset Management Division. You normally see Jeremy. I think the last time that we were together, I actually did DAS's presentation last summer sometime. So I'm excited. I'm going to be engaging more with CPAB moving forward because Jeremy and I, mostly Jeremy, has been, the brains behind kind of a lot of the new thinking and some proposals and strategies that we'd like to present to you. But just know that we will both be fully engaged moving forward to hopefully get us to a place where I know I've heard, especially you, Chair Foster, say that, CPAB is a place to go when you have to do your budget, and, it could be so much more. And we absolutely concur as well. So excited for the conversation, and I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
So I think what's exciting about seeing Shannon Ryan here with us today is this is us saying we want to take CPAB and we want to put it where it belongs and evolve it and grow it to where it is really supporting enterprise construction in the future. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for letting me invite myself.
You were invited. So just a couple of quick looking into the future. So seed planning, as I call it, into the future of this, and the DAS facility condition assessment statewide contract. So right now we're setting up the framework for what an FCA is. And you heard Paul mention we're talking about an app so that you can do field work more readily, as well as what are the things that we want to track and report on into the future. So we discussed a UI. That's a big one. That's not something that we've necessarily discussed in the past. It was always LEED silver, LEED gold, where we need to be much more focused on what it is and what technologies that we're installing into these facilities into the future, whether it be deferred maintenance and or capital construction projects. So that's one of them. Utilization was another. The necessity of the facility and the location. There's some different data points that we can look at as we bring GIS in and regional solutions for the state. Is there more of a one state vision we could use? Is there a shared opportunity in a facility that's being, say, DPSST, if they want $120 million? Are there other state agencies, other state functions that could be in that same location, co-location type of mindset? So we can do that through this data collection. It's very exciting. It's very robust, but we also try to develop it in a way to where it's user friendly. So the way I explain it to the team when we have conversations is we get to go to our facilities. We're not looking at facilities in China. So let's collect data, but let's not collect data that we don't necessarily need because we have an opportunity to actually be in our facilities. So that's just me saying those are the conversations I'm hoping we can have over the course of the next year. We have funding in place to make the changes to the FCA to make it robust and have it be not just a budget exercise, to be an exercise for sustainability and an exercise for utilization into the future. So just kind of paving a path for that in the future. That's phase two. That's accommodating the new metrics, incorporating that. So the other one is that what do we want to have the presentation be? That's the other conversation I want to have over the course of the next year. So we know we have CFO and then we'll have our metrics that we want to report on, but do we want people to talk about their agency and their future agency plans more holistically? Because right now you come in with this one little myopic piece of the agency's need, and you don't really understand if that really should be the priority. We should be thinking 20 years down the road and not being short-sighted. That's something that I've noticed. It's not poking at any of the past practices, but I think this is a great opportunity for us to evolve CPAB as a whole, as well as the Capital Planning Commission. The last comment I wanted to make is seismic. Sometimes seismic is a good topic to talk about. And sometimes we say, we don't really worry about it. Well, we are contemplating and looking at Tririga as being an ability to house the seismic information. So working with Daniel, past state architect Alice Wevell, she went as far as she could go, and she has some DAS information and some fragmented seismic vulnerability information throughout other agencies, but we want to be able to build out to where we could actually capture and prioritize, regionalize, and understand the continuity of government going in the future. So that would be something else I would recommend that maybe we contemplate putting into the CPAB
Jeremy
report.
started thinking about, the state just released their wildfire map, right? And the municipal spaces. I'm curious, I guess the question I have is like, is that in our purview or not? It protects the asset, but it's clearly not investing in a building or anything. But if you look at California, right, and we've had our own fires here, we gotta protect our assets too, but they survive fires.
I hear what you're saying, and Shannon and I are forging a really good relationship right now with the governor's office and contemplating the continuity of operations. And we have access through GIS to overlay fire maps, flood maps, and it's just a lens that I haven't seen us look at when we're talking about a new asset, but I think it would be amazing to be able to understand where we're anticipating building buildings or what buildings we should be prioritizing to invest in, because some are much more vulnerable, to your point, to fire and flood.
And I just got appointed to the governor's wildfire advisory board. So that starts, my first meeting's next Friday, so.
We don't want any more of those. I live up the canyon, so.
I'll also add to that the part of the expectations under Governor Kotek was there are myriad expectations for agencies, right? But one of them is for all of us to have a uniform continuity of operations plan, a COOP, right? And so we spent last year, all agencies did, doing our inaugural ones, if you will. And that's all orchestrated through the Office of Emergency Management. So they're a little, we'll call them draft-ish right now. I think there's a lot of refinement that needs to happen. But what's exciting is the Office of Emergency Management has already reached out to us because they're reviewing all of these plans submitted through to all of the agencies. And they're like, hey, I think we need to talk about strategic facilities and what that looks like statewide, because a lot of the agencies are when it comes to articulating what are your plans around facilities and what is your crucial facility, they're kind of pointing to DAS, saying, well, perhaps DAS will figure that out. And we're like, okay, well then let's have that conversation. So that is also a conversation that Jeremy and I will be having with the Office of Emergency Management. So I think there's a lot of really great opportunity, peripheral opportunity, and equally important as we forge forward with this work.
HB 3409 also states that any project over $1 million of investment has to come to DAS for us to be able to understand what they're doing. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm just going to throw this out there for you all to contemplate for the next quarter, is maybe contemplating what is your project management plan as being part of CPAB. Because we are finding, I've noticed that agencies will be awarded some funding, and then a project starts, and then a year into that project, they reach out to us and say, could we get some assistance? Where there could have potentially been a 10, 15, 20% savings if we could have been involved in the beginning. I'm not saying that we do it better than everybody else, but we just have the experience because we do it every day. So understanding what that project team is from the agency and how they're going to deliver the project, not just the monetary schedule.
Yeah, I know some of our to ask those questions.
Mm.
Is it kind of feels like, how are you doing this? How are you managing this? And I think,
And
like making it more formal makes sense.
yeah, I think, I'm curious myself as to how the history of the project management within the state has worked. Because I was involved with that program getting set up and having certifications for project managers. Because it really worked.
So the certifications are there, but a PM, in my opinion, only has so much authority to move a project. And it really takes that administrative level to help guide a project and understand the budgets to where you can deliver on time and on budget and actually get what it is you're buying.
Because, the origins of it grew out of a debacle with DMV. And, where the project scope got way out of hand. And, but who was on board with that? The director. So, for a successful project, it's got to have buy-in of keeping things on track.
Yeah, we've incorporated rigor, industry structure. So, every project has a sponsor, executive sponsor, a charter. There is a decision-making matrix and mechanism to do so, and reporting mechanism. And I'm not saying that we have it all dialed in, because we too have learned, the hard way in a couple of instances in a couple of different ways. But, to Jeremy's point, with every project, we get a little smarter and a little smarter. And we would just love to be able to impart that just to help other agencies, right?
But there is a long history of DAS doing that. We manage projects for other agencies for years and years.
Yeah, and I think since you left, the pendulum has kind of swung a little bit, and it feels like I haven't been here long enough to see the pendulum swing back again, but I've been told that, it does do this. So perhaps we're coming back into an era where DAS can be really more of that enterprise presence and do so, in a helpful way.
And some of these things, they get attention for a while and then they lose it.
Right.
After the Scotts Mill earthquake, there was a lot of attention on seismic, and then it kind of dwindled away. But clearly it's particularly looking at the capital and the investment that's being made there. It's come a long way.
And the Supreme Court as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to a project. It's not just delivering the project, it's how are you going to maintain said project. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. And we take cheese boards to agencies and try to get invited into their projects, but some agencies just really are not as interested in our help. So that's the thoughts for the future meetings, and seeing if we can make this a much more robust, powerful team of have much better outcomes of CPAP rather than just being an exercise of, I gotta go to CPAP. Yeah.
And have you, be the resource that you are, just a tremendous amount of knowledge and just wealth of knowledge in the room with the board. And I think that there can be a relationship with reciprocity, right? Like we can learn from you and be great partners. I mean, I always go back to just nothing but love in my heart when you all came together kind of on the fly when we were trying to buy the Wilsonville building. And ask for your input and help and support, and you did so. And honestly, it was instrumental in us being able to buy it so quickly. So I would love to see, that is an example of how I can envision you being a fantastic partner for all state agencies.
Because there was a lot of feedback in that. Through that process.
There was a lot of feedback.
Board, and in the end, we did deliver the project at 1.2% over budget on $100 million. So the process worked on that one.
Process did work.
Back to you, MC.
All right. So that's it for content. Just a reminder, the next meeting is going to be at the executive.
So we had some suggestions, like things we should be considering, so is that captured in notes or?
We have it, yeah. We record this, plus Amy does the notes. So in the, I don't know if I've been aware of this, but we have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So you remember when I used to type these notes, and yeah, so we did away with that. So we just upload videos. And then Amy does like the timestamp and whatnot in a kind of a summary thing. And it seems to be a little bit more efficient. But
So I try to capture the essence of the conversation here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to capture the essence of the conversation here, and that's what we send out as minutes. And then it's also posted to the DAS website for the advisory committee meetings minutes. And then there's a process where I have to correct the transcription because AI isn't that great yet. And then we send that to our DAS communications team, and they post it on the DAS YouTube website, and CPAB and CPC both have their own channels on that. So if you go to the website and click video, you can go back to watch any of these. And so if you miss a detail and I didn't quite capture all the conversation, you can actually go back and watch the whole video. So yeah.
Thank you. Daniel, would it be helpful if we took the metrics that we are reporting on in CPAB and shared it with the board so that they could see what we've historically reported on, so that people could contemplate what other metrics or values we could have reported?
yeah, we can do that. We have the CPAB workbooks, which, and I can just kind of synthesize that down because we know you guys totally dislike those. So we can just kind of list, here are the things that we have traditionally reported on. Maybe look kind of a gap in terms of what are we missing and what we have plans for that kind of fills that gap. And yeah, we can do that as like a summary memo that we can present at the next meeting. And yeah, no problem. Part of the thing with the Tririga is can we reproduce the CPAB report in kind? And it does do that, and it actually is much better. So we can use that as sort of a tool to look at, but I think that we can boil it down to a little bit more. What are the key things that are most salient of this that kind of move the process along? You know, is it cost? Is it dollar per square foot, or is it like things like I don't know, FCI? I mean, we've used FCI as sort of the big benchmark, but is that as relevant as something else? It's always, I think it's good for conversation.
One of the things, and we've talked about this before, is I have always had some trouble with the descriptors we put by the different FCI, because the variability of numbers doesn't suggest that level of precision. And the fact that, it's this very narrow range to be good, it seems like those ranges make more sense to be a little broader and maybe not so judgmental about bad, yeah. So what are part of it, but just, because I think in reality, where most of the facilities live is somewhere down the scale a little ways. And that's probably okay.
So we did a little research, phase one of Tririga integration to FCA, and I talked to Paul about, can we change that? And we decided to just implement it as is, because that was the rules that CPAB, I'm assuming, came up with in the past. And that would be part of our phase two conversation, because I can't match it to industry standard in any way.
Yeah.
It looks like somebody might have just decided these were the rules.
My understanding is that came from the consultant.
Yes, everything was adopted
Yeah.
from Faithful and Gould, which is why I think, no sacred cows. I think that we need to reevaluate a lot of things, because I don't even know if that was years ago. So I think you would find a lot of other agencies saying the same thing.
I'm very excited to hear you say that, because that is one of my top 10 priorities is let's discuss that and go with an industry standard so that we can compare and contrast to other states. So now you can't retire, sir. We have lots of good work to do.
It never ends. It never ends. It's like painting the building. Yeah.
As soon as you're done, you start again. Well, that's all I have, Bill.
So any further comments from any of the board members?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yes, I declare us adjourned.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.